Hey guys, this is Mr. H again. This is question number 44 from the review. I already did this question a few minutes ago by completing the square, but what I'm going to do now is a lot of you, we didn't do completing the square in class, so I don't expect all of you to know how to do completing the square. I'm going to show you how to use the quadratic formula to get an answer. But we're not going to get full credit because using the quadratic formula is not completing the square. But remember, on the exam, we're trying to get as many points as we can. So I'm going to show you how to use completing the square to get this. So now, so first thing I need to do is I need to show you where the quadratic formula is and what we're going to do. All right, so here, this right here is the quadratic formula. X equals a negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Now, I have a video, much more detail on how to come up with the b, the a, the c, all of that. So I'm going to put a link in this video. So if you want to go watch that to make sure you understand how to use the quadratic formula, you can do that. But for now, this is the formula that we're going to use. And I'm going to go to my iPad now to show you what I need to do. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write it. So it's going to be x squared minus 8x minus 5 equals 0. Now, in order to use the quadratic formula, the quadratic has to be equal to 0, and it is. Now, the coefficient, I'm going to make this is 1, this is a negative 8, this is a negative 5. So what we're going to do is we need the A. The A is the leading coefficient. The B is the coefficient next to the X term, so it's going to be a negative 8. And then C is just that constant. So those are the values that we're going to use. So now, remember, this has to be exact, which means you cannot have decimals that go on forever. It has to be either a fraction or it has to be a terminating decimal, but this one isn't a terminating decimal. This is actually irrational. So we're going to have to leave it as a square root. We can't calculate the square root because if you calculate the square root, you're going to get an irrational number. And you know that irrational numbers go on forever. All right, so let's go. So now, so what we're going to do, and because we want the exact value, the part that we need is, let me go back to, let me put the formula here. It's x equals a negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c divided by 2a. Now, you don't have to memorize this formula because it's on the reference sheet, but you do need to know how to use it. Now, the part that makes this decimals is this square root part. So that's the part that we're going to leave. We're not going to calculate it. We're just going to leave it as a square root. So in order to do that, we need to know what b squared minus 4ac is going to be. Now, so what we're going to do is I'm going to write it here. We're going to have x equals, and everywhere that you see the letter, you're going to replace it with a number. So this is going to be a negative 8 plus or minus the square root of a negative 8 squared, because that's the b, minus 4, and the a is 1, the c is a negative 5, and then down here, it's just going to be, hold on, down here, it's just going to be 2 times 1. So all I did was I took these numbers and I plugged them into b, the a, the c, and the a. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to store these numbers into these variables, and we're going to calculate this part in here, this b squared minus 4ac, and then we're just going to leave it alone. So let me show you what I mean. So we're going to come here, get the calculator. Let me get this. This is what we did before. We don't need this. I'm going to do mean 14, get rid of this. And then we're going to go to the main menu. Now here, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to store 1 into the variable a. Boom, done. And now I'm going to store a negative 8 into the variable b. Done. And then I'm going to store a negative 5 into the variable c. Done. Boom, press enter. We got it. Now, what I need to know is let me go to this part. What is the b squared minus 4ac? This part inside the square root. That's what I need to know because this is what's making it irrational. So let me go back to the calculator and let's calculate that. So we're just going to go b squared, not d squared, b squared minus 4a. Now remember, you can't have two letters next to each other. You don't want to put it this way because there's no variable AC. This has to be a multiplication symbol. Now, so b squared minus 4ac, that's the part inside the square root. You press enter, it's 84. So now watch what I do, and we're done. So I'm just going to rewrite this. X equals a negative 8 plus or minus. And now this 84, that's what's inside. So I'm just going to leave it as 84, and then I'm just going to put this over 2. Now, if you leave it like this, that's exact. I didn't simplify it. It doesn't say that you have to simplify it. It just says that it has to be exact. And when you leave the square root as a square root, you don't have any decimal. This is exact. And this would be worth 1 point. And the reason we don't get 2 points is that we didn't complete the square. But this is a correct answer. You don't have to simplify it. All right, that's it. That's all you're doing. You just have to be able to find the coefficients and then plug them into the formula. And because they want exact and they don't want any decimals, you have to leave the part inside the square root as a number. And you don't have to simplify this. You can leave it exactly like this. That is correct. All right, I'm done. Gonna post it.